Kathy, you're going to be telling me when? Kathy, you're going to be telling me when? Kathy, you're going to be telling me when? I don't think she is. I tell after the song, the music starts. Hi there. Welcome to Talk Art. I'm Susan Kraft, and tonight we have a guest with us named Preston Metcalf. He is the curator of the Triton Museum of Art in Santa Clara. And tonight we're going to find out how his life has changed art and how art has changed his life. Welcome, Preston.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Now, we're going to talk about several things tonight, and the first thing I'd like to do is to let everyone know that you're going to be talking about the art in the museum to some degree. You're going to be talking about the museum and the people that are involved with the museum and children that are involved with the museum and the different organizations that are also involved in the museum. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what your role at the Triton is and what inspires you.
That's a big question. My role at the museum covers a lot of territory. I'm a curator, which means that I help to organize the exhibitions, select the shows, work with the artists, essentially put the shows together that go into the galleries. I wear a lot of hats, however. I'm also the PR manager, manager of external affairs, which means that I work with the public. Anything that has a public face for the museum, I manage to become a part of that. Like most museums, especially small to mid-sized museums, we wear so many hats.
Now, when you say small, how small is the Triton Museum?
We have a staff of 10 primary staff members. We have auxiliary staff that includes security, gallery sitters, a rather large volunteer corps. So, and then of course a board of trustees who are also volunteers.
It's really not that. It's a small museum when you compare it to, say, the Met. But compared to some other smaller museums I've been in and seen, I would think it'd be more of a mid-size. It's a beautiful museum. The first time I went in there, I was wowed. I walked into one of the main galleries, and the walls were huge, and the space was wide, and the art was incredible, and it was just became instantly my favorite room.
It's a gorgeous facility.
Yeah.
It's one of the few museums in the entire Bay Area, that, especially the smaller museums, that was built to be a museum.
Rather than being changed from the, firehouse or...
Exactly, exactly.
Something that has big rooms. Oh, this could be a museum. So I'm sorry, now you were telling me about what you do at this museum and what your role is there.
Well, my role is to work with the art and to provide programs that not only provide a visual or an aesthetic experience for the visitors, but also programs that educate the public. We see ourselves as primarily an educational institution.
And that's a surprise to me. I didn't realize that until we started talking in depth to get ready for this show, that it was that education was such a big part of the museum, and that you actually go out to schools, and that you had this huge program for schools when California or Santa Clara didn't have art in the schools.
Santa Clara did not have art in the schools for a number of years. And one of the education programs that we developed was to provide studio art education classes in the school districts. Now, this is going back 15 years. During my first tenure at the Triton Museum.
Right, this is your second time back.
I've actually worked there for 2 different spans. And my role at that time was as curator of education. Once we learned that the school districts were cutting art education out of the curriculum, we decided that in order to fulfill our mission as a visual arts institution, we needed to provide art education in the schools. We raised all of the money, and then for about 10 years in 3 school districts, we provided art education, art classes, once a week, every week, for every child.
And how many kids were that?
About 17,000 kids a week.
So you saw 17,000 kids a week. And how many years did your group do this?
That program lasted for close to 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. Ultimately, the state added art back into the curriculum, mandated that it should be part of the programming. So we trained our own replacements, and we shifted the focus of our education programs, our off-site education programs, to alternative types of art education. We currently provide art classes, bedside and classroom education for long-term and critically ill children at the David and Lucille Salter Children's
I
Hospital
think that
at
was the
Stanford.
biggest surprise to me when you told
Yes.
me this earlier this week, that you actually go to critically ill and dying
Yes.
children, and you go to their bedside and give them art experiences and education, and it's got to be a big uplifting, children that have it in them to be able to do this, because even though kids are critically ill, they come and go with their energy levels, and it's got to be such a nice break to get out of the mentality of, I'm in the hospital, I've got to do medication, I've got to have therapy. Wow, I get to just leave all this behind and just be with my art and my art instructor, and have something
Yes.
that you create, and it's just so fun because kids love art.
It
People
is
in
one of the
general love art,
feel-good
but
programs that we do.
that's just wonderful. Well, this is being shot in Palo Alto, and I've been living here for a long time, so I've been involved with some fundraising for both the children's hospitals and also for the education programs. But I just had no idea that the Triton did such a wonderful job in that arena, because it's been something close to my heart anyway. So
That's actually one of the challenges that we have at the Triton Museum, is that our programs are so unknown. We are primarily a suburban museum.
yes, you are. You're right in the middle of a neighborhood
Yes.
across the street from City Hall.
We're not in a downtown location. People that come to the Triton don't come to make an afternoon of museum, gallery hopping, shopping.
It's a destination place,
It
definitely.
is. If
Yeah.
you're coming to the Triton, you need to be coming to
You
the
guys
Triton.
need to put in a restaurant there. Now, you do, let's see, what are we going to talk about here? I want to talk about some of this other stuff later, about the fun things you do when people
Yes.
make it as your destination. And I believe that probably gives them a nice pathway, because I know from having a retail place, which was a gallery, that once people cross that door for the first time, they're more likely to drop in. But getting them to cross that doorway or to go there for the first time is the big challenge. So you have all these programs in place, and which we're going to talk about a little bit later. I don't want to jump ahead. So, okay, go back to your story. I'm so sorry for interrupting.
Well, we were just discussing the types of education programs that we have.
Yeah.
This isn't just going off-site and providing classes for kids. We do have a wide array of studio art classes for adults, for kids on-site as well. But we approach everything from an educational perspective. Our exhibitions are there to educate the public. If we just see some paintings and think, oh, these are trippy paintings, wonderful colors, and hang them up just to feel good, as I know some galleries do, we're not fulfilling our mission.
Yeah. Well, you're a museum, and you have one of the best smaller museums that I've seen for many reasons. Not only the beautiful rooms, the art selections you have, and they change over so easily. Not easily. They change over. So not the word isn't easily. They change over so different. Each show is very different, unique. Now we're going to talk about some of the artists that you have there, and we have some images to show on the screen for people to look at. We have 5 artists from 3 different shows that we're going to bring up. And the first artist is going to be David Ogle.
We have 3 major exhibition spaces in the museum.
Right now?
Right now. We have 2 large galleries and a central rotunda area where we have exhibitions as well.
That's right, you do.
Sometimes the exhibitions, when they're large enough, they will occupy more than one of those spaces. The shows that we have coming up beginning this week in January, we have David Ogle, who is a longtime professor of art at West Valley College.
So David Ogle's piece is up right now. We're going to have it
Yes.
up for a moment. So now you said he's a professor at
West Valley College.
Okay.
David's a professor primarily of sculpture, bronze casting, and ceramics.
And the piece that you have up here is, now
Is
this
a
is
work on
this a
paper.
multimedia? But because there's a multimedia, not multimedia. We're multimedia. This piece has rope. Is that really rope, or did he paint it to make it look like rope?
This is a digitally altered piece.
Oh.
A photograph.
Oh, okay.
This is an exhibition of his works on paper. Now, what's
Oh.
fascinating about David Ogle is that his works on paper project the sculptor's aesthetic.
Okay.
They are very tactile. They
Yes.
have a lot of texture and dimension to them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how an artist who works mostly in 3D translates that into 2D.
Oh, it's obviously a 3D piece. The next one we have is Brigitte Kurt.
Well, where David Ogle is leaning very much towards the abstract. Rajit Kurt offers us a very traditional plein air landscape.
And this is a beautiful, well, she does all plein air landscapes. We have a
Yes.
beautiful plein air landscape up right now, and this one happens to be, I think it looks like acrylic, or is it an oil?
This is an oil.
It's an oil, okay.
Yes, and she is one of 30 artists who are participating in a plein air exhibition that will run concurrently with the David Ogle exhibition.
And this is the one our mutual friend Will Maller is in,
Yes.
who was on the show a few months ago. Okay,
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And all of the artists in this exhibition produced these works on plein air, outside, in the open.
That's what plein air means?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a very accessible show. We like to try to mix up the exhibitions at the museum so that when somebody comes in for something that's very traditional, very recognizable, very safe, they are surprised.
Safe. Now you call it safe because it's easy to understand.
Safe, yes, because it's familiar.
Yeah.
And a landscape, you're not going to get much more familiar than
No,
that.
you're not. I've taken an abstraction feeling that I want to play with on canvas and then put something familiar in this so people have a really quick access. They can access very quickly. Then they can start looking around the canvas at the actual painting. But they have to grab onto something first. Otherwise, if you miss that, if you only abstract and have painting styles and texture, many people will just walk by it because there's nothing for them to hook into right away, except for people like you and me, of course.
Yes.
Okay, now we have one more, one more show, which has 3 artists, and I think what they're going to do for us is bring all 3 images up. They're going to just rotate them over a few seconds at a time. So the first one up is Vicki Walsh. Now, what an amazing image this is of that face. Can you tell me about Vicki Walsh and this show?
Well, let me tell you about the show first.
Okay.
Every year we have an open statewide competition.
Okay.
We change the medium every year. Last year it was a watercolor competition.
Okay.
This year it was a painting competition for all media. It was juried by an art professor and artist down in Long Beach by
Okay.
the name of Dominic Cratara, a very noted professor.
Right, he's a portrait artist.
Yes.
Figurative artist,
And we had probably close to 800 submissions for this competition. People could send in slides and images. Of those 800, Dominic Cratara selected 90 to be in the show.
Did you keep all 90 in the show?
Yes.
You
yes.
did?
We have all 90 artists represented in the show. And this particular show comes with awards. So a few artists will be receiving cash awards,
Nice.
which is a nice
We
little
always
bonus.
like more artists that are going to be shown. Donald Wright, and then the other one is Michael Brennan. Is that
Michael
right?
Brennan.
Okay,
yes.
the first one's Donald Wright is going to be, oh, there he is, Donald Wright. Now this one looks very detailed. It looks like he's got counterparts of himself being, he's fighting with each other. So this is another figurative piece.
Another figurative piece.
But very, very abstracted.
Yes, and it's a much different feel than the Vicki Walsh piece,
Oh, yeah.
which is about a 5-foot tall
Really?
self-portrait,
Oh.
and very psychological, whereas the Wright piece is much more emotional and a lot more lively. Yes.
Very. Well, it looks like he's having an internal discourse with himself. Because it's obviously a self-portrait with 3,
Yes.
or it's his brother with himself, or somebody with himself anyway, with some sort of internal
But that's what's
dialogue.
interesting about these competitions is that we get such a wide variety of works. Now, the next piece that we were going to look at was the Michael Brennan piece. While not completely abstract, it's certainly abstracted.
And this is a painting, right? It looks like a photograph, but it's not.
It looks like a photograph. It's a painting of a pile of rebar.
Amazing.
And the rebar actually become an abstracted landscape. So here's where we get to play with the audience's expectations. They come in, they go into the first gallery, and they see the plein air exhibition. They think that they know what a landscape is, and then we get to surprise them with this pile of rebar that
Painting.
takes on the image and the message of a desolate landscape.
You know, here I'm an artist, and I've seen many, many exhibitions and many, many artists. I've been to, you know, but when I saw this image, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it myself. Of course, if I saw it in person, maybe I'd be able to figure it out faster. But it was really confusing to me. So he it was a man, right? Michael, he,
Yes.
exceeded or made what he was trying to do, I think, quite well.
Well, that gets into one of the key functions of our museum, is not just to show pretty pictures. We want to show pictures that have a significant idea supporting them.
Yep. Well, I think you've done very well. Good job with this. I want to also ask you about curating the shows and viewing portfolios. So now you didn't curate the show. As you said, you brought in a juror from
Yes,
who's a
that's
professor from Southern California. But you curate many of the shows yourself with George Rivera, who is the director of
Yes.
the museum for 20 years?
George has been with the museum, I think, close to 25 years.
25 years.
He worked his way up from a preparator who was hanging the shows 25 years ago. He became the curator of art and served in that capacity for a number of years. And he's been the longest serving director at the Triton Museum now. And he just keeps on
He's
going.
very dedicated, and his community outreach is very strong and continual. And he apparently, for me, from what he projects and what I can get from him, is that he's very consistent in what he does there and his outreach and his love for art and for the community and for that museum. And I don't blame him. It's a wonderful museum. And so, all right, viewing portfolios. So you curate shows and you view portfolios. And you can pick which one you want to talk about first.
Well, artists always want to know how to get into a museum.
Yes, we
whether
do.
it's the Triton or any other museum. One of the big fallacies of applying to a museum is that artists believe they can send in a packet of slides, the curator will somehow open that packet of slides, pop those images into a projector, be so overwhelmed that they'll just get a solo show. I've seen that happen about...
Galleries are the same way,
Yeah.
the way people send things into galleries, yeah.
I've never
worse.
seen it work that way.
No.
I have seen maybe a handful of artists be selected for group shows from packets of slides.
Yeah, it's like getting a date from a wrong number. Somebody calling you.
Well, you have to remember, we as curators are inundated with these things.
Yeah.
We get probably over 1,000 packets in a year. So for us, it's open the slides, hold it up to a natural light.
Yeah. Is it
see what
anything
those
worth
little-
looking at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
See what those postage stamp size images look like,
Yeah.
and then put it in a box.
You know what I've told people? I've given lectures on this sort of thing with respect to galleries, and I said, would you just ask somebody in line at a grocery store, hey, you look like a really neat person. I love your shirt. You know what? Your shirt really speaks to me. Let's have dinner. You don't do that. You know, it's somebody that you've been introduced to or you've met several times before you even say, do you want to have coffee sometime? You know, it's a relationship you're building with any sort of institution that you want to work with. And maybe you don't even want to work with that institution. Maybe it's not the kind of art that would go with what you're doing, or what they do doesn't fit your personality type, or where you even live, or where you want to send your art to.
That's the key. It's networking.
Yeah.
If artists want to know from me how best to make their work familiar with the Triton Museum, I tell them, come to the museum. We have
What a
receptions
concept.
every few months. We have events. We have education programs. We have lectures. Come to the museum. Share with us not a little packet of slides, although that's fine, but don't expect that to be the
That's
key
not
that
it,
opens
yeah.
the door. But keep us apprised of what's going on in your career. Now that kind of leads into the second topic that you discussed, which is we have a portfolio review. This is a program wherein every month, on the first Monday of each month, George Rivera devotes his day to spending 30 minutes with artists in succession throughout the day, reviewing their portfolios. Artists can call the museum,
No, that's the kind of commitment I'm talking about
Yes.
that George does. Yeah.
and he goes out lecturing to arts groups, reviewing portfolios, jurying exhibitions all the time.
Yep.
But this is a program wherein artists can call up. It's on a first-come, first-served basis. They can schedule the time with George, and he will talk to them about any level of their career. They can talk about how to get an exhibition if they're ready for a museum exhibition. We've actually put a few artists from these portfolio reviews into our shows.
We have a lot of very, very talented people around
Yes.
here. We really do. And we have a lot of newbies, and we have a lot of weekend warriors. And most people know where they lay. But some people are a little confused because they're not quite sure. They haven't had enough interaction. Artists, I think, by nature of the work, can end up being a little too solo their habits. And just getting outreach and joining groups is a step for people to take, and I think they just need to do that.
That's an excellent point, because creating the art is a solitary event. But if you want your art to be seen by others, you need to climb out of that little cave and go and let the people who have the ability to show it know what's going on.
Yeah. And you learn more from other artists as well. We need to, I can't believe how much time, I'm having such a great time talking to you, Preston. I want to ask you about, there's another side to, we've talked about education, and we've talked about, which was a wonderful, it was just such a great surprise, and the portfolio review and curating, which I was part of the portfolio review. That's where I met you. I wanted to have George see my portfolio, and that's how I met you, and I was absolutely delighted to meet you. This was about a year and a half ago. But now what I'd like to talk about are the wonderful events that the Triton puts on. There's the blues events. I've been involved with been to the blues events. There was the AVA Outdoor Festival, which was great to be at. I was also pleasantly surprised. And there's more than that as well, the gala event. There's 3 big events, and is there a 4th one too? No.
Those are our big
major
fundraising events.
So talk to me about those.
Museums need money. What better way to raise money than to have a party?
Bring people in and get them involved.
That's
with
right.
Fun and good.
You asked me earlier what one of my favorite events is, and it's the Blues Bash that we have every fall. It's a blues concert. We hold it, we're situated on a 7-acre park. So we set up a stage out back. We have bands that come and play all afternoon into the evening. We have a barbecue that accompanies it. And
we have something up on screen right now. The Blues Bash, there's a nice band up there playing. There's your sign, the Triton Museum. There's a couple of, if you can keep this up on the screen for a little bit, please. I want Preston to take a look at this. You've got 2 signs in the back against the blue, and somebody with a big TV will be able to see this. I think it must be one of your supporters.
Yes, I believe that's Hathaway Dinwiddie, who is one of the sponsors of the event.
Come back this way so you can talk into your mic.
That would be good.
Hathaway
Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie, okay.
Was one of the sponsors of the event. And then the large picture is an image that was created of, I believe, B.B. King.
When he was young, obviously.
We couldn't get the real BB.
Now you've got Blues Bash and Faux Q. Faux Q. So Faux Q, huh? What is the Faux Q?
Well, we had a little discussion about the quality of our barbecue.
Yes, we did.
And I think we came to an agreement that hamburgers and chicken with barbecue sauce
Kraft
isn't what you
sauce.
and I actually think of as quality barbecue.
Down home, deep in the pit, long, slow roasted barbecue. Yeah, so it's Faux Q.
I don't take credit for the I don't take credit for the Faux Q title, although I do sense a new slogan for our event.
Yes, well, and I have to admit that I did overhear a barbecue expert from Texas talk about that kind of so-called barbecue out of the bottle and just on a burger and a piece of chicken that you got from Safeway. He called it Faux BQ or Faux Q. Thank you. I don't want Faux Q.
That being said, they're really good hamburgers.
Well, yes, they are.
But the event also includes about 30 artists who set up tents throughout the 7-acre park. They're creating work during the day, and they're selling their work. So the artists benefit by selling work. The museum takes a percentage of that, so it's a fundraiser for the museum. It's just a
which will get cycled back into the art education and the kids. We have to. I can't believe we're moving on again. Still, okay. My floor director is saying, move on to the next thing. Okay. I'm sorry for cutting you off on that.
Okay.
What I do want to talk to you about, one more thing, is the, now we saw the backyard, the 7-acre park of the Triton Museum. We have the front. I'd like to take a look at the front of the museum and show our audience what the front of the Triton Museum, the beautiful Triton Museum, looks like. If we can please have that image up. I think it's about to come up any minute. There it is. Now there's the front, and there's this beautiful horse in front. It's called, the Triton Museum was named for the
founder of the museum also raised Morgan horses, and most of his horses had the name Triton incorporated into it. Now his name was Robert Morgan. He had a convoluted story.
Yeah, we don't want to go into the convoluted story.
But we're named after a horse.
We're named after a horse, and so there's this wonderful statue of a Morgan horse, which is a beautiful horse and animal. Now there is a a story of the Morgan horse, or this Triton horse image that you saw. You grew up in the neighborhood. So when you were a
Yes.
kid, tell the story about the horse
In
and you.
1968, a wonderful thing happened 3 blocks from my house. These small little pavilions started to be built that were going to be a museum. I had no idea.
The original museum before the beautiful
original
structure
museum.
that's now, yeah.
My brothers and I watched as a large crane lifted into place this giant green horse.
What a thing to happen in your neighborhood.
And it needed to be ridden. The next day, my brothers boosted me up onto the horse, and the next thing I knew, a little white-haired lady came out of one of the little huts screaming, and my
Get off
brothers
that
were
piece of
halfway
art.
home.
That's our brand new sculpture.
Exactly. So I was the first kid to be kicked off with a big green horse out front. Now the
Did they
upshot
give you
of
a
it is,
plaque for that or anything?
I should have
you should.
something.
You should have a ribbon with a medal
marker,
or something, yeah.
but
Your
the
name
nice
at the
part
bottom
of
of
it
that
is,
horse.
this
Sorry.
little white-haired docent
Yeah.
took me into the building and said, "Do you know what this is?"
So she is the reason
She is the reason that I became involved with the Triton Museum the first time.
when you were
9 years old.
9 years old.
And she brought me to the, or introduced me to the first art education program, which
Wow.
was a hands-on project at the opening of the museum.
Wow.
So I started out very early with the Triton. Now I like to tell volunteers that story because if anybody ever wonders if their volunteering makes a difference,
It certainly did.
it does.
Because there you are. We have just about 30 seconds left. So that's a great story. And I love that story about the horse, because that horse is, when I first drove up to the Triton Museum about 5 years ago, I saw that horse, and it was just, that first opened my heart because I'm a big horse person. And then I went in and saw that gorgeous room. The rotunda is wonderful, and then that gorgeous room. There's several of them like that, but it's just stolen my heart ever since. So is there anything else you want to tell us in the last 20 seconds before we have to close?
We need the public to continue coming to the Triton because
Come
that
on in,
enables
people, come on in.
that enables us to go back out into the public. We
Yeah.
want to continue to grow, to continue to provide
So
good
all of you
education.
artists out there, where's the camera? And it's all gone. So what we need to tell the artists is to come on in, bring your portfolio in there, become members, come to the lectures, bring your kids, bring your family, come to the Blues Bash, sign up for the AVA Fest, and bring your art and sell it. There's 2 opportunities to sell your art at the Triton, out on their lawn, on their 7-acre, the spring. Spring for the gala, summer for the shows, and fall for the Blues Bash.
We have it all.
We have it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. That's not wonderful.